Shalom, or praise to Yahweh Shem Shah, double honor to the apostles of GMS. This is I'm Now Allah coming at you another video. And in this video, I'm going to be focusing on the book of Acts, the 17th chapter, the 24th verse on down. And now I'm going to be going into the poets that the apostle Paul spoke of throughout the scriptures. Okay? Now, I did a show on this through the Spirit back in 2014. It was called The Apostle Paul Casting Down Imaginations. The whole show is about 27 parts. I had went into a whole history of Acts, the 17th chapter. But I wanted to go back into the poets that the Apostle Paul spoke of because I've been thinking about doing a show on this for a long time now, but I just never done it. So the Spirit is on me to do it now. So, I'm just going to, do the show. But before going into Acts the 17th chapter, I want to start from the book of, I want to go into Acts 21 and 39 and give you some Apostle Paul's birthplace and some history on it so that we can fully understand these poets. So let's go to the book of Acts 21 and 39. But Paul said, this is the Apostle Paul speaking to the chief captain that was leading him to the castle. But I want to get right to the point. This is Acts 21 and 39. But Paul said, I am a man which am a Jew of Tarsus, a city in Cilicia, a citizen of no mean city, and I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people. Now let's go to this word Cilicia in the Greek.
Strong's G 2791, Kilikia.
It says Kilikia, all right, and it says Cilicia, the land of the Celics. It says a maritime province in the southeast of Asia Minor, bordering on Pamphylia in the west, Lycaonia and Cappadocia in the north, and Syria in the east. Its capital, Tarsus, was the birthplace of Paul. So the Apostle Paul was from Tarsus, which was the capital of Cilicia. That was his birthplace. Let's get a map. As you see here on this map, Galatia or Asia Minor or Anatolia, which is known today as Turkey. As you see here on the south, or on the bottom, you see what? Cilicia. See? Cilicia. And it says Tarsus because Tarsus was the capital of Cilicia, like how Athens was the capital of Greece. Okay? So you see that there on the map. Now let's go back to Acts 21 and 39. Let's read it again. It says, but Paul said, I am a man which am a Jew of Tarsus, a city in Cilicia, a citizen of no mean city. Now, what made me want to look that word mean up is because I remember when I was younger, when I was in school or whatever, in math, they used to teach about the mean and the average and all of that. When you look at that word mean, it says the mean is the average of the numbers. It is easy to calculate, add up all the numbers, then divide by how many numbers there are. It says, keep going. It says, well, that's basically the gist of it. That's what made me think about it. Because the mean is basically the average of the numbers. You add the numbers up and then you divide it by the amount of numbers that you added. So I said, so that's what grabbed my attention. Like, see, it says how to calculate the mean value. Math is fun. The mean is the average of the numbers. It is easy to calculate. Add up all the numbers, then divide by how many numbers there are. In other words, it is the sum divided by the count. So that's what grabbed my attention to the word mean. So the Spirit said, look at the word mean. I knew that's not what it meant, but that's what appeared in my mind. So I'm looking the word mean up. When you go to that word mean, it's amasas or asamos.
Strong's G 767, Asimas.
Asemas, right? And it says asemas. It says unmarked or unstamped, of money, unknown, of no mark, insignificant, ignoble. Okay? Got the word ignoble. Of low birth or common origin, characterized by baseness, lowness, or meanness. See that? So now let's go back to Acts 21:39. We're going to read the whole thing and put that definition there in the place of the word mean. So it says, but Paul said, I am a man which am a Jew of Tarsus, a city in Cilicia, a citizen of no mean city, or a citizen of no unmarked city, or a citizen of no insignificant city, or a citizen of no ignoble city, or lowness or baseness or meanness. So the Apostle Paul wasn't from any old city. He wasn't from an unknown city. He was from a known city. He wasn't from an ignoble city. He was from a noble city. He wasn't from an insignificant city. He was from a significant city. And I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people. So what made Tarsus significant? What's one of the things that made Tarsus significant? Let's go into the history. This here is from Ancient History Encyclopedia. It says Tarsus. Tarsus is a city located inland from the Mediterranean by about 20 kilometers in the area of Cilicia, Anatolia. It sits on a major trade route, which increased its prosperity over its 2,000 years of known historical contribution. It was an important point of intersection between the land and sea routes, making it a significant place of commerce. So it was a significant place of commerce. We saw it was located on a map right by the water. At one point, it was the accepted capital of Cilicia. At one point, it was the accepted capital of Cilicia in the Roman Empire and held fame for being the meeting place of Antony and Cleopatra, as well as being the birthplace of the Apostle Paul. So it was known for a meeting place of Antony and Cleopatra, and it was the birthplace of the Apostle Paul. Continuing on, it says, let's go right down to the point. Just to give you a little history on that. Okay, it says the patron god of Tarsus was Sandon throughout the majority of its established history down to the 3rd century CE. And further fame was accorded to Tarsus as it was affected by the passing through of Alexander the Great in 333 BCE. Tarsus was also famed for its schools and a library which were said to rival those of Athens and Alexandria. So not only was it famed for commerce, not only was it famed for being a meeting place of Antony and Cleopatra, but also it was famed for its schools and library, which was said to rival those of Athens and Alexandria. Alexandria was in Egypt, and Athens is the capital of Greece. So Tarsus was known for its schools, and it was known for its library. So it was known for what? It was known for knowledge. So the Apostle Paul, growing up in Tarsus, which is the capital of Cilicia, and being in an environment that was known for schools and libraries that was said to rival Athens and Alexandria, the Apostle Paul had to have been surrounded by a vast amount of knowledge. He had to have been a learned man. Okay? He had to have been a learned man. That's why the Apostle Paul could speak different languages. And this is one of the reasons why the Apostle Paul knew about these poets. Let's read a little bit more. It says, around this time, Tarsus was known as Antiochia on the Cydnus. When Pompey defeated the pirates in Cilicia, Tarsus became subject to Rome and took the name Juliopolis or Juliopolis. Subsequent to this and the birth of Paul the Apostle, Tarsus held a long and prosperous ecclesiastical association in history. Now, let's get into a little more of that. This right here says, explore ancient Anatolia. It says, travel notes and photos of archaeological tours in ancient Anatolia, Turkey. This is March 29, 2016. Let's go down. It says, when Alexander the Great passed through with his armies in 333 BC, we just read that in the last article, last webpage, and nearly met his death here after a bath in the Cydnus. Strabo was another Roman philosopher. As a matter of fact, when you watch the movie 1492, when Columbus says he was reading Esdras, I believe he also mentioned Strabo, which Strabo was a Greek, just right here it says Strabo was a Greek geographer, philosopher, and historian who lived in Asia Minor during the transitional period of the Roman Republic into the Roman Empire. It says he was born 63 BC and died circa AD 24, so he died about the age of 87. So let's go back. It says Strabo praises the cultural level of Tarsus in this period with its philosophers, poets, and linguists. The schools of Tarsus rivaled those of Athens and Alexandria. At this time, the library of Tarsus held 200,000 books, including a huge selection of scientific works. Okay? The Stoic philosophers conceived of the cosmos. That's all I got to read there. I'm going to go back to that. Okay? I'm going to go back to that, but that's what I'm going to read there. So it says, at this time, the library of Tarsus held 200,000 books, including a huge selection of scientific works. Okay? So during the time of Strabo, who was born around 63, 64, go back to that real quick. around 63, 64 BC, and he died 24 AD. Around this time, Tarsus was said to have held 200,000 books. All right? In that blog that we just read, where it said at Tarsus, the Library of Tarsus was said to have 200,000 books. This is from a website called Bible History Online. Okay, see that? Bible History Online and the gold letters at the top left-hand side? When you go down, right here, it says Strabo praises the cultural level of Tarsus. I'm going to put it at the top of the page. Strabo praises the cultural level of Tarsus in this period with its philosophers, poets, and linguists. The schools of Tarsus rival Athens and Alexandria. 2 Maccabees 4:30 records its revolt in about 171 BC against Antiochus IV Epiphanes, who had renamed the town Antiochia on the Cydnus. See, we read that on Ancient Encyclopedia. In his time, the Library of Tarsus held 200,000 books, including a huge collection of scientific works. The name didn't last, however, due to the confusion of so many cities named Antioch. So that's all I'm going to read there. So what have we learned so far? What we learned so far is that the Apostle Paul is from Tarsus, which is the capital of Cilicia, which was no mean city, meaning no unknown or no insignificant or no ignoble city, but rather a noble, significant, and known city. And it was known for its commerce. It was right by the water, Cilicia, and it was known for its library. It was known for its library and for its school was said to have rivaled Athens and Alexandria. And even Strabo, a Roman geographer, stated himself that it was said that during his time, there was up to 200,000 books in the Athens library. So that's what you understood so far. Now let's go to Acts the 17th chapter. Now this is the book of Acts chapter 17 verse 24. This is the Apostle Paul speaking to the Stoics and to the Epicureans. Now the Apostle Paul is saying to the Stoics and the Epicureans, he says, "The Most High that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands." Now he's speaking to the Stoics and the Epicureans. I'm not going to go into the Epicureans here. I'll probably do that in another show, or I just might not do it because I did it on another lesson years ago. But I might do it anyway through the Spirit. But let's go into the Stoic philosophy, see what Stoicism is about. So we just read that verse. We don't really understand it. We understand it on a surface level, and understanding that the Most High don't dwell in temples made with hands, but let's understand it on a deeper level. Now, I'm going to go to Wikipedia real quick to go into Stoicism, and I'm going to give you other sources as well. But everything here is correct because I've looked this up years ago. It says Stoicism is a school of Hellenistic philosophy founded by Zeno of Citium in Athens in the early 3rd century BC. While Stoic physics are largely drawn from the teachings of the philosopher Heraclitus, they are heavily influenced by certain teachings of Socrates. Stoicism is predominantly a philosophy of personal ethics informed by its system of logic and its views on the natural world. According to its teachings, as social beings, the path to happiness for humans is found by accepting the moment as it presents itself, by not allowing oneself to be controlled by the desire for pleasure or fear or pain, by using one's mind to understand the world and to do one's part in nature's plan, and by working together and treating others fairly and justly. The Stoics are especially known for teaching that virtue is the only good for human beings, and that external things such as health, wealth, and pleasure are not good or bad in themselves, but have value as material for virtue to act upon. Alongside Aristotelian ethics, the Stoic tradition forms one of the major founding approaches to Western virtue ethics. The Stoics also held that certain destructive emotions resulted from errors of judgment, and that they believed people should aim to maintain a will called prohairesis, that is, in accord with nature. Because of this, the Stoics thought the best indication of an individual's philosophy was not what a person said, but how a person behaved. To live a good life, one had to understand the rules of natural order, since they thought everything was rooted in nature. Many Stoics, such as Seneca and Epictetus, emphasized that because virtue is sufficient for happiness, a sage would be emotionally resilient to misfortune. This belief is similar to the meaning of the phrase stoic calm. See, he has a stoic calm about himself. He has a stoic nature. Though the phrase did not include the radical ethical stoic views that only a sage can be considered truly free and that all moral corruptions are equally vicious. So basically what stoicism is, when you get into it, it's about virtue being the only good. It's about virtue being the only good, and it's about I just had it here. It's about virtue being the only good, and by not allowing oneself to be controlled by the desire for pleasure or fear of pain, and by using one's mind to understand the world. It's so much more to it, which I'm gonna go into it further. I'm gonna go into it further in the show. That's just the surface level. Okay, it's about self-discipline. Let's get a little matter of fact, that's what I'm gonna read on that for now. But as we go on in the show, I'm gonna go deep into Stoic philosophy. That's just the surface level. So basically, Stoicism is about not being controlled by not allowing oneself to be controlled by the desire for pleasure or fear of pain. It also goes into virtue being sufficient for happiness. Okay, and that people should aim to maintain a will that is in accord with nature. And that the indication of the individual's philosophy was not by what a person said, but rather how a person behaved. Okay, and it speaks about being emotionally resilient to misfortune. A person that's resilient has the ability to bounce back from misfortune. That's why you get the phrase having stoic calm. A person that's stoic can deal with hardship and suffering with showing no emotion. Okay, so you understand what stoicism is on the surface level. All right. Now let's go back to Acts the 17th chapter. Then we're gonna get right into the lesson. Now this is Acts 17:24. The Most High that made the world and all things therein, seeing that He is Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands. Now the Apostle Paul got that from a Stoic philosopher. What was the Stoic philosopher that the Apostle Paul got that from? Now the Stoic philosopher or poet that he got this from was a man named Seneca the Younger. Seneca the Younger, circa 4 BC, AD 65. Fully, Lucius Annaeus Seneca or Seneca, and also simply known as Seneca, was a Roman Stoic philosopher, statesman, dramatist, and in one work, satirist of the Silver Age of Latin literature. You go to word dramatist. A playwright, a dramatist, is a person who writes plays. And he was also a Stoic philosopher and a statesman. I'm not going to go into too deep of a history about him because that's going to make the show a lot longer. Which I already went deep into that on what I mentioned in the very beginning of the show. The series that I did. All right, years ago, back in 2014. So we know you have a man named Seneca the Elder. Now, what did Seneca the Elder write? What was some of his writings known as? Let's see if we can find something here. Now, I'm gonna go right here. I'm gonna go right here where it says retirement. This is around Seneca's retirement. Okay. As a matter of fact, I'll read a little bit about him. It says let's read something about it. It says Seneca was born in Cordoba in Hispania and raised in Rome, where he was trained in rhetoric and philosophy. He was a tutor and later an advisor to Emperor Nero. He was forced to take his own life for alleged complicity in the Pisonian conspiracy to assassinate Nero, in which he was likely to have been innocent. His father was Seneca the Elder. His elder brother was Lucius Junius Gallio Annaeus, and his nephew was the poet Lucan. His stoic and calm suicide has become the subject of numerous paintings. As a writer, Seneca is known for his philosophical works and for his plays, which are all tragedies. His philosophical writings include a dozen philosophical essays and 124 letters dealing with moral issues. That's something that we're going to get into. As a tragedian, he is best known for his Medea and Thyestes. Now let's go to his retirement. It says, after Burrus's death in 62, Seneca's influence declined rapidly. Tacitus, who wrote something called Tacitus in the Annals of Imperial Rome. I believe he was also a Roman statesman. I believe Tacitus wrote in the Annals of Imperial Rome, like the more laws, the more corrupt the state, or something along them lines. I believe that quote goes back to him. He wrote that in the Annals or Annuals or Years of Imperial Rome. The Annals of Imperial Rome meaning the years of Imperial Rome. Like annual or annual means yearly. Tacitus reports that Seneca tried to retire twice in 62 and 64 AD, but Nero refused him on both occasions. Nevertheless, Seneca was increasingly absent from the court. He adopted, because he was a statesman, remember that? He adopted a quiet lifestyle on his country estates, concentrating on his duties and seldom visiting Rome. It was during these final years that he composed two of his greatest works, Naturalis Questions, an encyclopedia of the natural world, and his letters to Lucilius, which document his philosophical thoughts. Let's go right there, letters to Lucius. The Epistulae Moralis ad Lucium, Latin for moral letters to Lucius, also known as the moral epistles and letters from a Stoic, is a collection of 124 letters that Seneca the Younger wrote at the end of his life. During his retirement, after he had worked for the Emperor Nero for more than 10 years. They are addressed to Lucilius, the then procurator of Sicily, who is known only through Seneca's writings. Regardless of how Seneca and Lucilius actually corresponded, it is clear that Seneca crafted the letters with a broad readership in mind. Go to see who Lucilius is. Lucilius Jr. says 1st century was the procurator of Sicily during the reign of Nero, a friend and correspondent of Seneca, and the possible author of Etna, which that's even the insurance company today, a poem that survives in a corrupt state. Okay, see the cover of Moral Letters to Lucius, or Letters from a Stoic. This is supposed to be Seneca the Younger right there. And as a matter of fact, when I went to Stoicism, this is supposed to be Zeno of Citium. I believe Zeno of Citium was the one that came up with the phrase, you have two ears and one mouth. It's better to hear than to speak. See if I can find that real quick. Now, this is from a website called Daily Stoic, who was Zeno, and the introduction to the founder of Stoicism. Now, let's go right down. This is talking about some of his quotes. It says, better to trip with the feet than with the tongue, Zeno. We have two ears and one mouth, so we should listen more than we say. So he either came up with that phrase or is often associated with coming up with that phrase. Now, let's go back to the point. Now, right here is from www.stoics.com, and it says, Seneca's Epistles, which is letter, Seneca's Epistles, Volume 1. Source, Lucius Annaeus Seneca, Moral Epistles. Translated by Richard M. Gumer, The Loeb Classical Library, Cambridge, I believe that's Massachusetts, Harvard, 1917 to, I believe that should be 1925. Now let's go right into, before I go right into it, I'm going to go back to Acts 17 one time and then go right to it. Acts 17:24. This is Acts 17:24. The Most High that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands. So this is the Apostle Paul speaking to the Stoics and the Epicureans, and he's telling them the Most High that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands. Now we understand that. We understand that the Most High dwelleth not in temples made with hands, but do the Stoics and the Epicureans understand that? Yes. Let's go right into it. This is back here to the epistles of Seneca the Younger, okay, which is it's 124 letters to Lucilius, who was a friend of his, who was a procurator in Rome. In other words, he dealt with the Roman courts in civil law. Okay, now this is letter 41. As you can see here, it says XLI, and X is 10. The L is a 50. Since the L is after the X, which is a smaller number, it goes down to 40. And then you have the I, which makes it 41. And this chapter is called On the God Within Us. See? On the God Within Us. Right? It says, with hands, all right, here, go right here. It says, you are doing an excellent thing. I'm going to go right to the top. Okay? Epistle 41. On the God within us. You are doing an excellent thing, one which will be wholesome for you. If, as you write me, you are persisting in your effort to attain sound understanding. It is foolish to pray for this when you can acquire it from yourself. We do not need to uplift our hands towards heaven, or to beg the keeper of a temple to let us approach his idol's ear, as if in this way our prayers were more likely to be heard. God is near you, he is with you, he is within you. This is what I mean, Lucilius. The Holy Spirit dwells within us. one who marks our good and bad deeds and is our guardian. So what he's saying right there is what? He's saying we need not to lift our hands towards heaven or to beg the keeper of a temple to let us approach his idol ear. Why do we got to go to a temple? Why do we got to go to the keeper of a temple and to speak to an idol's ear? As if in this way our prayers were more likely to be heard. You don't got to go to a temple. You don't got to go to no idol. Because why? He said, God is near you. He is with you. He is within you. Let's go back to Acts 17, chapter 24 verse now. The Most High that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands. He don't dwell in temples made with hands. He just said that in the epistle, in the 41st letter to Lucilius. In the Moore's letter to Lucilius. He just said that. Let's go back. You are doing an excellent thing, one which will be wholesome for you, if, as you write me, you are persisting in your effort to attain sound understanding. It is foolish to pray for this when you can acquire it from yourself. We do not need to uplift our hands towards heaven or to beg the keeper of a temple to let us approach his idol's ear. So he's telling you the Most High don't dwell in temples made with hands. You don't got to go to a temple. You don't got to go to an idol's ear. As if in this way our prayers are more likely to be heard. God is near you. He is with you. He is within you. So he's saying the Most High is near you. He's within you. He's near you, he's with you, he's within you. So you don't got to go to a temple, nor do you have to go to an idol. The Most High that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands. He don't dwell in temples. This is what he's telling Lucilius. But the Apostle Paul, being from Tarsus, which is the capital of Cilicia, and Tarsus having schools and libraries said to rival Athens and Alexandria, which was said by Strabo to have had over 200,000 books in his library, it was no mean city. It was famed for its, meaning no insignificant, no unknown, no ignoble city, but rather noble, significant, and known city for its commerce and famed for its schools and libraries said to have rivaled Athens and Alexandria. He knew of these different philosophies. He had to have been aware. He grew up in that environment. The same way the Israelites in Greece and in Rome knew about that. Knew about Roman philosophies and Greek philosophies. Now, with that being said, what is the Apostle Paul doing there? How is he gathering them to the truth with this? Why would he just quote that? This is the book of Acts, chapter 9, verse 20. And unto the Jews I became as a Jew, that I might gain the Jews. To them that are under the law. In fact, I'm going to go right to the point. Acts 9:22. It says, to the weak became I as weak, that I might gain the weak. I am made all things to all men, that I might by all means save some. So the Apostle Paul was made all things to all men. How is he done? How is he made all things to all men? Let's give you an example. Let's go to the 20th verse. And to the Jews I became as a Jew, that I might gain the Jews. To them that are under the law, as under the law, that I might gain them that are under the law. So how did the Apostle Paul made all things to all men? Because the Most High gave the Apostle Paul the Spirit to be able to deal with any man on any level in order to gain him to the truth. That's why I said that I might gain them that are under the law. How can we give you an example of that? Let's go back to Acts 17 chapter. Because remember, in 1 Corinthians 9:20, it said to the Jew I became a Jew, right? As under the law, that I might gain them that are under the law. Acts 17:1. Now when they had passed through Amphipolis and Apollonia, they came to Thessalonica, where was the synagogue of the Jews. And Paul, as his manner was, went in unto them, and 3 Sabbath days reasoned with them out of the scriptures. So the Apostle Paul went to the synagogue of the Jews in Thessalonica, and for 3 Sabbath days reasoned with them out of the scriptures. So when he went to the Jews, guess what? He was going in the synagogue. He was going to the Old Testament. He's going into Deuteronomy, going into the Psalms, going into the book of Isaiah, and so on and so forth, telling them about Yahushua. Opening in a legend that Yahushua must needs have suffered and risen again from the dead, and that this Yahushua whom I preach unto you is the anointed. And some of them believed, and consorted with Paul and Silas, and of the devout Greeks a great multitude, and of the chief women not a few. But you had some that didn't get it. But the Jews which believed not, moved with envy, took unto them certain lewd fellows of the baser sort, and gathered a company, and set all the city on an uproar, and assaulted the house of Jason, and sought to bring them out of the people. So we understand that the Apostle Paul went to Thessalonica, to the synagogue of the Jews, and reasoned with them for 3 Sabbath days out of the scriptures, opening the legend that Yahushua must needs have suffered and risen again from the dead, and risen from the dead. and that this Yahweh Shah which you preach is the anointed. And it says, and some of them believe. Let's go back to 1 Corinthians 9 and 20. And to the Jews I became as a Jew, that I might gain the Jews, to them that are under the law, as under the law, that I might gain them that are under the law. Verse 22, to the weak became I as weak, that I might gain the weak. I am made all things to all men, that I might by all means save some. So the Apostle Paul knew how to speak to Stoics and Epicureans on their level, the level of their philosophy, in order to gain them to the truth. Because the same way in Stoic philosophy, they believe that their God dwelleth not in temples made with hands. But guess what? According to the scriptures, the Most High don't dwell in a temple made with hands either. Okay? So if you could believe that in your philosophy, he dwelleth not in temples made with hands, how much more in according to the scriptures they said the same thing? It's like if a person who studies Shakespeare, and I say, you can't make yourself a part of the elect, you gotta be a part of the elect. So to be or not to be, that is the question. They're gonna be like, then they gonna understand. So with that, I'm gonna close. I'm not done through the spirit. I'm gonna keep going. But that's just the first part. Okay? As a matter of fact, I'm gonna keep going. Okay? As a matter of fact, brothers, I'm gonna end it on there. Because the other scriptures that I got for the next verse and the other history I got for the next verse is gonna tie right into this verse. So with that, I'm gonna close. All you brothers learn something. I'm gonna say, oh praise the Yahweh Shah, double line to the apostles of GMS. All you brothers learn something. Shalom.